Hi, I'm Natalie, and today we'll be making a French baguette, which is very common in France and actually pretty simple to make. So we'll start by combining a simple activate dry yeast with 1 tablespoon of honey and half a cup of warm water. We then stir this mixture for about 5 minutes until the yeast starts to foam, and that proves to us that the yeast is starting to activate, which will allow the bread to rise. After about 5 minutes, the yeast begins to foam, which shows that the yeast is activated. So then we add 2 cups flour to a new large bowl and combine that with 2 teaspoons of salt, and then we add 1 cup of warm water. So this water is already cold, so I'm going to go get new. Okay, so then after we have our salt and our flour combined in our big bowl, we add our yeast mixture, which is already foamed up, which means it's activated. And then we just combine this until it's into a ball. We slowly add the warm water. Okay, so as you can see, it's starting to coagulate and form a small ball, which is super sticky. So once we have our ball, then we'll start kneading it into what's known as a French baguette. Okay, once we have our dough that's starting to form the ball, we'll then flour a surface, so I'm just going to use the countertop. When we do this way, the dough doesn't stick to the counter or your hands. And then you just take your dough, and we're going to knead it for about 4 to 6 minutes, depending on how long it takes to become elastic. So pretty much what we're doing is just activating the yeast once again. We're breaking down the enzymes and just kick-starting it to start rising. And once this is activated, it'll then sit in a bowl for another 25 minutes, and that's when we'll see the dough actually start to rise. And French baguettes, when I was in France, were actually like what I saw everywhere. You just walk down the street and they're like hanging from clotheslines, just pieces of bread. Like people go in there and just grab a baguette and just chomp on it while they walk down the street on their way to work. So that's why I thought I would choose this to make today, because it's so common. It's also pretty common to add like lemon marmalades or jellies to like as toppings for your bread, and also ricotta cheese, which here normally we just put like olive oil or Parmesan on our cheese or on our bread. So I thought that was pretty interesting, and I might try that later. Okay, once we have our ball of dough, which has been kneaded for about 4.5 minutes, we're going to do a thumb test to make sure that it actually rose properly. So what you do for a thumb test is you just poke your thumb into it, And when it bounces back, which it is slowly, it means that it's ready to go. So then we're going to take our ball of dough and place it in another bowl which has been oiled so it doesn't stick. And we're just going to leave it in there covered so that no light can get to it, and let the yeast and bread rise for about 25 to 30 minutes. After 30 minutes, we then take our dough back out of the bowl, and we're going to separate it into 2 different loaves. That way we'll get 2 baguettes out of it. So I floured my surface again just to make sure it doesn't stick. But we're going to form this into a baguette, which is a long, skinny roll. But now, to make it a baguette, we're going to take the top part and just bring it down to form like a little envelope, and then you do the same with the bottom part. And as you do this, you stretch it. This is just to stretch out the dough and get it into that long, skinny shape that we need. Okay, then once you have your baguettes rolled into like a baguette shape, we're going to place them on a cornmeal dusted pan. And then once again, they're going to get covered and rise for 25 more minutes until they're about doubled in size. Okay, after we let the baguettes rise for 25 more minutes, we then are going to place them on the same rack on the middle shelf of the oven, which has been preheated to 450. And at the same time as we do that, we're going to place a tray of ice cubes on the level below it, and this will create steam, which gives us that crispy crust that baguettes are known for. And then they're going to bake for 15 minutes, and they should be perfect and crispy. Now that the baguettes have been baking for 15 minutes, they should be done. And since we used the ice cubes, the steam from the ice cubes made the crust hard and brown, so they turned out pretty well.